Greetings, Beavemanites. Beaveman here. This week's spotlight is on a very talented young lady who designed the Beaveman and the Doc logo that you see when you access our podcast. I've utilized her services for a couple of years now, from business card logos to t-shirts, and let me tell you, somehow she is able to transform my stick figures or written description into works of art. It's like she's reading my mind. I highly recommend her. If you folks are interested in having some high-quality graphic design work completed, please contact this talented young artist. Her name is Michaela Porti. She's also at It's Mix Studio. Her Facebook page and Instagram is It's Mix Studio. That's ITSMIKSTUDIO without the MOUSE. Her business email is itsmixstudio@gmail.com, so email or Facebook message her for any type of commissions. You can check out Instagram for up-to-date finished pieces. If you have business events or products you would like us to mention before the podcast, please feel free to reach out to us and we will consider the request. And you can email us at beavemandthedoc@gmail.com. And I did not come up with that email. It's beavemandthedoc@gmail.com. And now it's time for this episode of Beaveman and the Doc. As always, thanks for listening. Share the links and episodes. Invite a friend. You know the deal, etc., etc., etc.
Yo, what the fuck is up? I've been gone for a minute, but I never back it up, ayy. They say I've been slacking for a month, but you can shut your mouth, cause I only run it up like, who the fuck are you? I've been living up while I rep the red and blue. I just wanna know what the fuck you wanna do, and you can't come for me, cause I'm just hitting snooze.
Okay, and we're back with Beaveman and the Doc. This is episode, I don't know.
Like 8 now.
Like 8. So before we get going, as always, because we are idiots, and we have opinions on things, and opinions, you know, we should still be somewhat factual. So I was tempted after the last one to do a quick edit on our podcast because I made a mistake, and I knew as soon as I said it that it didn't sound right. But I'm able to make the correction now because my producer said, nah, just make the correction before the next podcast. You already set the podcast out. So last time when we talked about cults and how awesome it would be for us to have a cult, I did talk about, I was telling Doc about the people that, you know, everybody likes to see drink the Kool-Aid, but it really wasn't Kool-Aid, and said that was not the Heaven's Gate. I said that was Children of God. That was not the Children of God. That was, the People's Temple. And it wasn't David Berg, it was Jim Jones, and that was Jonestown. So it made it easier for you to remember what I was talking about if I said, hey, that's Jonestown. So it's Jim Jones that looks like a cross between, like if Mel Tillis and Roy Orbison had a baby, that would be Jim Jones, not David Berg. David Berg looks more like somebody who really wants to be like a deranged Santa Claus mixed with, those depictions of God like on the Sistine Chapel.
Sounds like you're trying to describe me.
No, he's got the long beard. He's a little decrepit guy. Anyway, so the point is, I'm redacting what I said in the last part, and because I was doing that from memory anyway. But like I said, so that's the correction. So now we can get on with this episode. And as usual, Doc, how are you? I haven't seen you for
about a week.
So how's it been?
I've been busy.
And let me guess, studying.
Yeah, pretty much.
Busy studying, and once again.
Yeah, midterms coming up. You know how it goes.
Yeah, I know how it goes. I went to college for a couple of years.
You had a few midterms.
Yeah, I had a few midterms. Had a few papers, all that good stuff. And so you decided that because it's Halloween, you wanted to do a
Halloween show.
You want to do a Halloween show. So we got at least one more show after this one for this month. So next show will also be Halloween themed because who doesn't love Halloween?
Absolutely.
Except maybe a bunch of Christian weirdos.
Hey, I'm a Christian.
I also found out from listening to the last podcast that I say a lot. It was pointed out to me by the person I was listening to. It was so this time I'm going to try and not say a bunch of times.
But you've already said it 3 times.
But I think the reason why I say that is because I don't say so I say instead. So instead what I will be doing is pausing and trying to keep myself from saying
There's 4.
I'm just telling you because of the descriptor, not because I'm actually saying it in conversation. Do you understand?
I figured
what
the
I'm
only
saying?
reason why you kept saying it is you were expecting me to reply in some way, and what can I say? Sometimes it's better not to say anything.
Okay. Well, I actually listened to the podcast, and I did enjoy that. But let me ask you this: did you listen to the last podcast?
I have not had the chance.
And how do you expect other people to listen to it if you yourself are not listening to it?
I did listen to it. I was there, remember?
Oh, damn it!
Like a politician who doesn't vote for himself. What, I'm supposed to vote for myself?
I am always worried that the podcast is not that funny or not that interesting, so I always listen to it afterward. And as always, and I hope this is always the case, I was pleasantly surprised because I enjoyed it. So it was not bad at all. I liked it, except for the mistake that I made that I just corrected. So future listeners, when we've got down to episode 600, and they say they want to go all the way back and listen to the first few episodes, they might get pissed off at episode 7 if they know anything about cults, but rest assured, by episode 8, they probably won't be mad anymore. But you can also rest assured that I will make lots of fucking mistakes as time goes by, but I will try to correct them. And if we actually have a listening audience, please feel free to put your comments on the SoundCloud site, because you actually can comment on the SoundCloud site in the comments section, and we actually had comments on our SoundCloud site.
Really?
Yes, we did.
Any of them good?
Yeah, they weren't bad. Interestingly enough, actually, one of the comments was a guy that I went to high school with, and that you also know. So that was pretty cool.
Oh.
Yeah, so that was really cool. That doesn't mean that we want people out saying that they know who we are either. So, just keep that a secret for now.
Yeah.
Because we're just so famous. Anyway.
I think you told me about his comments.
No, I didn't. No, you would enjoy them, though, if you actually had, because you do have access to the site, just you don't check it. So this episode is going to be about vampires.
One of my favorite topics.
Why is that one of your favorite topics?
I don't know. It's kind of like time travel. I like things that have a history to them.
So if you were what about like a movie about time traveling vampires?
Now that would be the Alchemist series has a time traveling vampire involved.
Okay.
Interestingly enough.
Know anything about that series?
Yeah. Good books.
This was your topic. How did you go about researching this topic?
I really didn't. I have heard so many stories, and I paid really close attention to the whole concept of vampires. I didn't feel like actual research was necessary. I know a lot of different ideas and backgrounds behind the vampire mythology, and I guess I'm a bit of a buff on things, myths that have a certain element of truth to them.
So once again, because this is not a well-researched podcast by Doc's own admission, we're probably going to make mistakes. So, once again, we're idiots. We don't really give a fuck. Okay, so, what do you got for me then?
Well,
because I said that I would mostly focus on the pop culture aspect of it, which it translates to I was just going to watch a bunch of movies and TV shows.
Well, there are lots of different types of vampires, and primarily the
boring
oldest of the vampires, the Nosferatu variety, and then the typical vampire run-of-the-mill that you see in different TV shows, and then you've got like the succubus and incubus, which are emotional vampires, I guess you could refer to them. They feed on lust and life energy.
I'm a bigger fan of the succubus as opposed to the incubus.
Yeah, well, male and female counterparts, you know. Then there are some who believe that vampirism is like the equivalent of a demon possession. That it's just a husk of a corpse being puppeted by a demon. There are other, you were worried about that, and here I am saying, Then there's the history of vampires, and with, oh hell. I should have printed it out, like you said.
Well, what I did
Vlad
was...
Tepes III, otherwise known as Vlad the Impaler, which is what Bram Stoker based his concept of the Nosferatu on.
Yeah, Bram Stoker, was... we talked about this by text. I actually read the book. You didn't read the book.
Why? The movie was good.
Because it's not the same as the book, you ding-dong.
Close enough.
It's based on. Does not mean the same thing. Anyway, Bram Stoker's Dracula, the book itself, was really pretty good. And I enjoyed reading it because it does not paint the same picture of vampires that you see in pop culture. If I remember correctly, he was like blonde-haired, blue-eyed dude. Anyway, so Bram Stoker's Dracula, still a really good flick, 1992. Cool thing about that, though, was I watched it again. I went ahead and bought it because it was just as cheap to rent it as it was to buy it. And there's my plug for something that rhymes with Damazon, grime, I guess. So I watched that, and that was fun to watch because... one, it had Winona Ryder in it. Swing! Who I love. Yeah, who I love. Had Keanu Reeves in it. Hey, it was a classic Keanu Reeves, classic acting job. So I still love Keanu Reeves from, Bill and Ted. But this was way before his best acting, which was John Wick. No, fuck no. John Wick, man.
Matrix was way cooler.
Oh, so wrong.
Which also had vampires.
Matrix was not way cooler than John Wick. Are you out of your mind? Have you seen John Wick?
Yeah.
Oh, you think the Matrix is... woman. Girl. You're a girl. Anyway, so... let me kind of break down the synopsis of Bram Stoker's Dracula. 1992. At which time I would have been in Germany at that time. So I don't know. I must have... either I saw this in one of those little AFIES type theaters, that they have for the military on base, or I must have waited for it to come out on... I might have waited for it to come out on tape.
I actually saw...
VHS.
I actually saw that movie in the movie theater with a group of friends, some of which you know.
Oh. You were not in the Navy by then? When did you go in the Navy?
I was out early.
Alrighty, well, I'll leave it at that. I will give you the IMDb description, sort of.
Might have been on leave.
The centuries-old vampire Count Dracula comes to England to seduce his barrister Jonathan Harker's fiancée, Mina Murray, later on to become Mina Harker, and inflict havoc in a foreign land. I'm not really sure that's true. I don't really think that's what he's doing. So this is a classic tale, story of Dracula. Most of them, most of the genre kind of focuses on Dracula. There's kind of a mix. I'd say it's probably like 50-50. Somebody's always got to pull it out on Dracula. So they have some little spin on being Dracula or
he is
descended
one of the most widely known vampires, but he's not the first and not the only one.
No, but he's probably the most classically referenced in most movies that we're familiar with.
Correct.
Let's see. Like I said, I read that several years ago. I did like it. So I think Bram Stoker was a genius. He was a good writer because he said, hey, I know what people like. People are interested in monsters. They're interested in vampires, but I want a good spin on a vampire. So I know I want to write a vampire movie, a vampire book. So what he did, though, was he's like, I want to tie it in historically, though, so I can get more interest in it. And that's why he started researching, basically medieval folk. And he found, what's his name? Vlad Tepes, right? Awesome. And if you just focus basically historically on Vlad the Impaler and say, oh yeah, he impaled more people than anybody. He was this ruthless person, bloodthirsty, blah, blah, blah. No, not really, because that was how things were at the time. If I was born back then, I'd be the same way.
There are those who argue that Vlad Tepes was the first vampire. Not only because of his bloody demeanor, but because of his conflict with the church, because, he spent almost 15 years in a prison at a Catholic monastery.
Right, but his conflict wasn't technically with the church, it was with the Orthodox Church, because he'd spent so much time in captivity.
Right.
He never left the church.
But
it was the division between, Orthodox, what do you call it, the Russian Orthodox or whatever, the Catholic Church. So he never left Christianity.
His relationship with the church was a representation of his relationship with God. So when he finally did give in to the pressure from the church to make an attempt to go out and fight, I think it was the Turks that were attacking. One of his enemies decided that they would try and send out a message to the battlefield saying that his wife was killed, and so he, on his way back, or no, they sent it the other way around.
Yeah, the other way around.
They sent it to his wife saying that he was killed. And so in doing so...
So basically they did it ghetto style. So what they did was they took a piece of paper, they wrote on it, they took a rubber band, stuck it to a brick, and threw it through her window.
Or tied it to the leg of a pigeon. Sure. Either way.
Or they stuck it on an arrow and they shot it in the castle and it just happened to find its way to her. So that part is actually true. Like if you read, if you watch kind of like, what is it called? It was another movie or another show that I watched. Horrible show, horrible filming. Dracula, the True Story, 1997. Available also on Gramazon Shrine. And that was supposed to be 1997. It looks like they videotaped it with a camcorder back in like 1984.
Maybe they did.
And slapped it on some. But actually, it was really pretty good because it spoke about the same thing. And they actually had his great granddaughter on there. She was like 26th generation or whatever. And historically, they said that that's all true. His wife did drown in the river. She threw herself in the river because she thought he was dead. He did fight that massive army against Oz because they thought he was going to. He thought he was going to lose. They all thought he was going to lose,
and he won.
And so, when he came back, they said that he was just a little bit more grouchy, and that's when his real reputation actually got more underway because he lost this woman or whatever. So it's a classic story.
It's
a classic
more than
tale.
that because there's a lot of God tied into everything in this story because of the concept that it was believed back then that people who commit suicide could never go to heaven.
True.
They were damned.
That's still believed today.
Right. So the idea being that he, in his fit of despair, renounced God.
Yeah, but they say that's not true.
Yeah.
That's it. They said that the actual struggle or that actual... You're reading more into what Bram Stoker's story. You're not reading historically. Historically, the only struggle that is shown in history and that is shown passed down from his family is the struggle between him with the Orthodox Church or the Catholic Church.
There's
and that's only because he was imprisoned.
And then there's the concept of the Nosferatu vampire.
Right, you're talking about the concept. You're talking about the origin story.
Correct.
I'm talking about historically. But yeah, historically, that shit's not true. The concept story has nothing. The Orthodox Church is never even mentioned. It's just him rebelling against the church.
I'm explaining why God is important to the vampire story.
Not important.
And if you take God out of the vampire story, it cheapens it.
No, it doesn't.
Absolutely,
you don't have to have God for vampires.
You do.
You don't. No, you don't. You're wrong. You're wrong. You couldn't be more wrong, Danny. You're wrong, Danny. Anyway, so because I researched this, I'm going to read what I got here with my spin on it. It's a classic tale. Classic tale. And here we go. Boy meets girl. Boy meets girl. Boy goes off to fight an army against insurmountable odds.
Booyah.
Girl thinks boy won't return. Some jackwagon shoots an arrow into her castle with a note that says boy's dead. Girl throws herself into the river. Boy wins battle. Boy finds out girl is dead. Boy goes off deep end and renounces God and becomes a vampire. Classic tale.
Kind of. Yeah.
It's a classic tale all the time. Boy finds girl again reincarnated. Girl is a slut. Hangs out with the boy even though she is engaged.
Giggity.
Girl marries fiance. Boy loses girl again because he gets his throat cut and a stake to the heart. Classic story. That happens with every boy meets girl story.
It's just the moral of the story is women will be the death of you.
The moral of the story is exactly. Well, that is the moral of the story. Gosh darn it, Jonathan Harker had to go away, and she was lonely. But in her defense, though she didn't know this, she was a slut independently. He was getting hit on by a bunch of female vampires, and was succumbing to his own lustful thoughts and feelings. But most likely they probably hypnotized him anyway, and they did look pretty hot in the movie. So
one of those vampires that went on to Jonathan Harker was Monica Bellucci.
And I'll pretend to know who that is. Who's Monica Bellucci?
She's just a really hot Italian actress.
Some hot chick.
She was in The Matrix too.
Oh boy, here we are back to The Matrix. So what I liked about the movie was, as usual, it had some cool elements to it. It had some hot chicks in it. You can't beat some hot vampire chicks. Sadly though, because I saw that the original time would be over 20 years ago. Yeah, over 20 years ago. And back then, I thought the redhead was really hot. I watched the movie again. She's not so hot. It's kind of sad. The other thing that I kind of didn't like about the movie was I love Gary Oldman. He's a really good actor. He played Dracula.
Oh, yeah, he did.
He was a little old for Winona Ryder for my taste. Didn't kind of like that concept of Winona Ryder with old Gary Oldman. Kind of gross. The other thing that I liked about it was his armor was sweet, but you could tell it was kind of made out of plastic. And when I saw it the first time, I was like, that armor is so flippin' cool. If they would have made it out of metal and made it look like striated muscle, that would have been flippin' sweet. Can you imagine somebody coming at you on the battlefield wearing that? That would have been freaking awesome.
He's got no skin.
Yeah.
Or he's wearing somebody else's.
And there's some serious times that Anthony Hopkins is in it.
Yeah, he plays Van Helsing.
Yeah, and he plays him a little crazy, and not a big fan. Not a fan.
Really? I thought
Anthony Hopkins
was one of the
I didn't think that was one of his better roles. I really didn't. But I did love Gary Oldman. And it was a classic Keanu Reeves acting demonstration. The other thing that I did like about it was that he was able to go out in sunlight. Because, as they say, I don't know where that one even comes from. Well, I know where that comes from because they're talking about how pale people looked like who had problems with bloodborne diseases or bloodborne illnesses. Well, they're pale because they don't have a lot of circulating hemoglobin, and there are conditions also where people have true allergies to sunlight. So they'll probably get a little bit of that from the.
That is one possibility, but I think it more likely the fact that the prisons of the time, especially the ones he was probably given, were basically just a dark hole. And they throw him in this hole, and they close the door. They push a little food through in every now and then, and that's prison. And so he spent 15 years essentially in the dark.
You're talking about historically.
By the time he got out,
Vlad
he had
the
developed
Impaler,
a bit of an aversion to sunlight.
We're talking about Vlad the Impaler compared to Bram Stoker's Dracula, but Bram Stoker's Dracula is able to go out in the sunlight.
Well, that part I think is a bit of a stretch.
Well, I like that.
At the same time, it wasn't exactly direct sunlight. It was very overcast.
Why? Because it's England? It's London?
Because
I just watched the movie, motherfucker! He was out in direct sunlight! Fuck you! You don't know what you're talking about! Watch the movie and then tell me.
To shield himself.
He used his magic.
That's right.
He used his magic. Well, that explains everything.
He was a sorcerer.
Well, let me ask you this then, smart guy. How was Dracula supposed to get his vitamin D if he wasn't going out in the sunlight?
he'd steal yours.
He'd steal mine. Right. He was using his magic to shield himself. So just so everyone knows, you don't have to watch the same movie I watched to have a discussion with me about it and act like you know what the fuck you're talking about. Anyway. What else you got for me, genius?
Well, there's, like I said, there's lots of different varieties of vampires
let's hear
seen
one.
through some people's eyes.
Oh, no, we're not talking about your opinion.
Let's talk about the original vampire, or what is said to be the first documented or written story about vampires.
Oh, does this come from ancient Egypt?
Close.
Samaria?
No. Greece.
Okay.
The Greeks were the first ones to come up with the idea of a vampire. There was a guy named Ambrosio who pissed off the god Apollo. And Apollo, being the god of the sun, had cursed him so that the sun would burn his skin, like, really fast. Like, lethally so. Mm-hmm. So he was no longer able to view the sun. And the Apollo's sister, which was Artemis, had also jumped in the bandwagon and cursed him as well, gave him an aversion to silver. And after a while, Ambrosio thought that he could undo the curses by making a deal with the devil, or in his case, Hades. So he gambled with Hades to remove the curses, and he lost. So he lost his soul. So now his soul, being in the underworld with Hades, left his body a soulless husk, which was walking the earth with an aversion to sunlight and an aversion to silver. And what wound up happening with that was that eventually Artemis felt sorry for him, changed her mind, thinking that maybe they had gone too far. So she decided to give him blessings to return his soul to his body, and in order to make it to where he could survive, she also gave him enhanced speed and strength. And Artemis, being the goddess of the hunt, she was a hunter, made him a predator.
You know, probably a simple hand job would have done the trick.
Yeah, that would have made him happy for a day, but she was talking about somebody, or referring to somebody who was going to be around for eternity, because Hades had control of his soul. So the idea being that that vampirism can be passed on comes from the idea that if you are a vampire, you are cursed by the gods, or God, depending on how you want to look at it. So you can't have a vampire legitimately without God being involved.
Why is that?
Because it's
Wait, did you just say legitimate? You can't legitimately have a vampire without God being involved.
Correct.
That's not correct. We're talking about a fictional character.
Because
really, if you want to talk, if you want to get about it, okay.
The story, you can't become a vampire unless Hades has your soul.
That's not true. Why can't
everything
what
else
makes you
stems
think that,
from this?
Okay, if you want to look at it from an evolutionary standpoint, are you saying that we can't just develop vampirism? That's like saying you can't have mutations of cells. That's like saying that you can't have any disease now that wasn't around 50 years ago.
Just
of course you can.
Just
called mutation of organisms.
Somebody's blood doesn't mean you're a vampire.
You can have mutations of organisms all the time. You have natural selection. You have all these other things. Just like we talked about before. You think the first polar bear was white? Of course not. The first polar bears were obviously probably brown bears. And then those brown bears, eventually they had a white bear because of the environment they were living in, and that was the abnormality, and eventually that was the norm because how else were you going to eat if you couldn't blend in with your surroundings? So you can't sit there and say, "Oh, you couldn't just naturally have vampires." What if you naturally did have vampires? What if they naturally? You want to go back to God? What if there really were? What if there naturally were vampires? You can't say you can't have vampires just because it has to have some sort of God involvement.
If you're
That's a ridiculous
vampire,
notion.
God hates you.
Oh my gosh!
It is that simple.
That is so not fair. That's just not fair to vampires. That's just a narrow view. So let's say that there were vampires. If there really were vampires, and you think that if there were vampires, God would have to hate them, then I would question, if there are vampires, I would question the existence of God. That's what you should do. You should question the existence of God.
Why?
Because there's nothing tangible that you can clip on. The universe is so vast. How can you think that God made all of that? That's like the narrow view that everybody thinks is we're the only beings in the universe. That's crazy. That's insane. That's insanity.
We are.
Anyway, you always got to tie it back into religion. So back to pop culture. Have you seen What We Do in the Shadows? 2014, also available on Gramazon.
I haven't seen it yet.
Okay, that's a great movie.
I wanted to because it looks like it'd be funny.
That is a funny movie. It's funny because it's got three dudes, three vampires, well, four, born in different centuries, and they're living together in New Zealand, in a flat in New Zealand. So it's kind of like they took vampires and put like the real world, kind of spin on it, and then put them in a flat in New Zealand, and then they did it documentary style. Mm-hmm. So that's actually a really good movie. I enjoyed that one because it's got the same, the vampire norms in it, but it's cool because it has them from different centuries trying to, what happens when you take real people and put them in a real life situation and expect them to get along or whatever. But it's a good one. I like that because they've got the guy Vladislav, who was the poker. He was Vlad the Poker.
Instead of the Impaler.
But it's a great movie. One of the funniest parts is they're walking together in a group, like they were out on the town or whatever, and they're like, "You smell something?" And they walk by this group of guys who are werewolves, but they haven't changed or anything, so they're making comments to them about, don't get fleas or whatever, and they almost get in like a little gang fight together. It's pretty funny. It's a great movie. It's a great movie. I like it because it's in documentary style, but if you have a chance, you definitely want to see that movie. And that does not make me feel sad for vampires. Like you kind of feel a little sad for, Count Dracula and Bram Stoker's Dracula, because you're like, you kind of want him to get the girl, mostly because Keanu Reeves is not a great actor in the movie. You're like, if he was a better actor and he sold his part a little bit better, maybe I'd have had some sympathy for him, but it makes you kind of have sympathy for Count Dracula.
That might have been Stoker's goal.
Well, I mean, if you read the book, which you didn't, you would feel bad for Count Dracula also. Because he is trying to get back with his reincarnated love, who, committed suicide because she thought he was dead. I like to make those loose correlations, though. Gary Oldman played Count Dracula. Dracula is always associated with bats. And he played Commissioner Gordon in Batman. So there you go. The circle is complete. The circle's complete. All right.
Batman versus Dracula.
Well, that's already been done.
Yeah, but have you seen it?
No, but
I liked it.
I'm sure Batman won because that's how it goes.
Because Batman's smart.
awesome. Because Batman's awesome. So, back to pop culture. I wanted to get some different aspects of vampires. Have you seen The Vampire's Assistant?
I have not.
Cirque du Freak, The Vampire's Assistant.
Oh, yes.
2009.
Cirque du Freak. I like that.
Yeah. Did you like the movie?
I enjoyed it.
The movie was cute. Didn't do justice to the books, though. Have you read the book?
No.
So if you got young people, your son would like the books. Your younger son. They're great books. I mean, the movie doesn't do it justice because it's only telling this one tiny piece. Basically you've got the kid, Darren, he tries to steal this guy's spider, who's played by John C. Reilly, who I love. He's a good actor. And they make him become the vampire's assistant. So he's not a full-on vampire, but the vampire's assistant is really the beginning. It's this lifelong, it's this war between the vampires and the vampanese. And that movie only tells this tiny little bit of it, but the books are very detailed and just it's a great ride. That one's interesting because they don't sit there and they don't bite each other in the neck. They use their fingertips. So it's it's just a new take.
Well, the Japanese do.
Well, it's kind of interesting though, because if you really think about it, I think that's one of the big mistakes they made anyway, is they made vampires bite you anyway, because the positioning of the canine teeth, nobody sucks through their teeth in the first place. They make it seem like they suck through their teeth.
If they were going to use their teeth, that'd be in the tube in the very front.
Yeah, and if you were going to do something, an interesting take on it would be if they gave vampires a proboscis instead, like a mosquito. Yeah. That would make way more sense. That'd make a ton more sense than using your teeth. That's just it's kind of like where you would write about something that has some sort of an anatomical or physiological leap in it without having any knowledge of what you're talking about. They're making them bite it and makes it look like they're sucking it up through the teeth, but really, that makes no sense. But again, I don't know anything about vampire anatomy, so maybe it makes perfect sense. It just seems like it's not convenient just because of how our jaw works and accessibility. Anyway, but again, that one was too. Can't go out in daylight, which again I think is ridiculous. If I was a vampire, I think it'd be totally necessary for me to go out in the daylight. Was it the third Blade movie where they resurrect the original vampire? He can walk out in the day.
Oh, Vlad Tepes there too, yeah.
Yeah, and all of his children who are retarded in his opinion, they can't walk out in the day because they screwed up somewhere along the lines. They're just not real vampires like he was.
Interesting concept with the sunlight and vampires. There's another show called Being Human, which is basically about a vampire, a werewolf, and a ghost.
Oh, sounds great.
Yeah, it's actually a really good show. But the concept there is that the vampires some vampires can exist in the sunlight. They still don't like it. But their explanation was that because the older vampires are more powerful, and that the further away from the original vampire you become, you are weaker and you take on less of the vulnerability to sunlight with it. So eventually, the guy is a vampire who is just a little bit stronger than humans, most humans, a little bit faster. He still depends on blood, but he can exist in the sunlight. Now, against an old vampire who can't exist in the sunlight, they're very close to the source, and they are far more powerful than even him. So
I think I misunderstood that. So you're saying the more far removed you are from the original, you can't be in the sun? It seems like it'd be the other way around.
No, your vampire traits degrade.
That's what I mean. So
and along with them, the vulnerabilities that come with it. So the young vampire farthest removed from the original has less vulnerability to the sun, but they're also not as strong. So as the further away from the original they get.
Well, I understand that, but you're saying that they have, but that's not because they're less vulnerable, it's because they have more human traits. Because if you were closest to the source, who was able to be in the sun, you should also be able to be in the sun. If you're farther away, it means you can sustain the sun more, but it's not because you have less traits, it's because you would be more human trait. So it's still a good thing. So it's the people in the middle who are screwed.
Right. Now, if that original vampire were still around and went out and created another vampire, they would be very vulnerable.
Well, see, that doesn't make any sense either. Because, if you think about it, right? So if you had the true vampire race, right? So for some reason, the way they do things, it makes you think like the vampires cannot survive unless they make other people vampires. That's kind of how they've set it up. But really, that's not. That's like saying that they're all they can't reproduce. You know what I mean? They can't reproduce unless they find a host who is a human. So that idea seems completely ridiculous to me, because why would you have it that way? And then that species would die out. It would make more sense that if you would combine it and say, okay, yeah, these are the people that were accidentally turned, or you promised it to them and you could turn them, and then you have the race of the ones that were able to reproduce and have children that were vampires.
There are some movies which base a vampire's ability to reproduce, so to speak, simply by biting them and passing on the vampiric traits. Others require a willing effort, like you have to drink the vampire's blood.
Right.
When your blood is depleted in order to take on those vampire traits. That's a willing thing. Then there are others that consider vampires to be more like people, where they can have children, to where you could have a child born a vampire and then grow up, which I think is a ridiculous stretch. But
I don't think that's a ridiculous stretch, because if you're not thinking species wise. If the sole survival of your species is dependent on you biting and passing it on, then from a genetic standpoint, the one that you pass it on is not going to be as strong as you. And then that one passes it. It's like making a copy of a copy of a copy of a copy. Whereas if you have a species that can reproduce, that's going to be the stronger version.
But a species that has basically an unlimited lifespan has less need to reproduce. So
it doesn't have an unlimited lifespan. None of them say they have an unlimited lifespan. They still age.
It is implied that they are immortal.
If you're immortal, then theoretically, if you're immortal, that's a take on that word, though. Immortal means you can't be killed. Also, they can be killed, so they're not immortal. And you can't be immortal if you're not alive in the first place. They're supposed to be undead. They're not alive in the first place.
They don't die. They don't die of age.
Well, you could. They're easily killed. That's what I'm saying. From a species standpoint,
a species with a short lifespan would have to reproduce very quickly. A species with a long lifespan would have to, or indefinite, might not have to reproduce at all.
Yeah, but there would be no point in just spreading your trait. That's what I'm saying. If you're spreading your trait as a disease, that's what it would be concerned as, because you can't genetically just change that person's DNA. Okay, so if you're going to quote change their DNA, you've just made a weaker copy of yourself. And now they're going to make a weaker copy, and eventually that trait's going to go away anyway. So you actually did nothing to preserve your species. Because eventually, like you said, just like this one who's so far removed, well, that would eventually happen to all of them, and there would be no more vampires.
Right.
So that's why I would say that's not realistic. We have to say that it's more likely that vampires are part of the initial food chain created from the Big Bang in the first place, or created from a god in the first place.
I think that's where the explanation or answer to that dilemma you pose is where the curse aspect comes in. It's not a species. It's a curse.
That's like saying the devil's evil. There's not even any mention of the devil in the Old Testament. They don't start mentioning the devil until freaking the Renaissance. And then they wanted to put it in art. There's no mention of it. You've got like one mention of the serpent in the garden. It's all about the fear factor, man. There's no curse. If there is a devil and there is a God, you think that they're not in like a 50-50 situation there?
There are lots of scriptures and gospels and things.
None of which Doc can quote.
That you... It doesn't matter. There's a lot more to that story than what's in the Bible.
What book is it in? What book is it in? Give us a book. Name more than one book of the Bible.
Name more?
Yeah.
The Gospel of Judas, for example.
And?
There are over 31 Gospels, only 4 of which made it into the Bible.
New Testament.
No, the Bible in general. The Old Testament really wasn't its own book until around 300 AD. Before that, it was just a collection of word-of-mouth stories and things like that. So the idea between the Old Testament and New Testament is that the Old Testament told the way it was, and the New Testament tells the way it is, or should become.
Hence the term old and new.
Correct.
Right, but still, again, there's no mention of Like, if you really want to piss off someone who's, Christian, you bring up the Old Testament. They get really mad about it.
Why?
I don't know. Why do they? Well, probably because, I don't want to segue too much, mostly because God of the Old Testament is a complete asshole. God of the New Testament, not so much.
It's his right, his business.
I'm not saying there's anything wrong with it. I'm just saying, if you bring it up to, somebody other than mostly Jewish people, they get all pissy about it. If you say God was an asshole in the Old Testament, they're like, no, he wasn't. I'm like, okay, prove to me that he wasn't. Where wasn't he? Who wasn't he punishing? The whole thing's about him punishing people and saying, hey, do this, do that. Oh, hey, sacrifice your kid. I'm not going to tell you I'm going to stop you at the very end, but go ahead and do it. You there, chop off this guy's testicles. You, start chopping off the foreskins. You did it. Anyway, the point is...
And you say that this Old Testament God that you describe is not capable of a curse that could make somebody like a vampire?
Well, you said the curse was in Greece.
Originally, that's the first written. Like before Christianity, this was a story.
Well, that goes back to the whole thing too. So you're saying that everybody who, that's the only thing that pisses me off, is when everybody wants to talk about the one God theory, then everybody who has ever walked this earth before Yahweh, when they believed in their other gods, because they were not introduced to that God, if they died and you believe in heaven, where did their souls go?
Do you ever think that maybe all these different religions and versions of God that we would
are all describe the same thing?
Are all the same guy?
Yeah, I think about it all the time. But you try to tell that to other people, they get fucking pissed off.
I don't know why.
If you can, historically speaking, and we're getting off track here, historically speaking, this is the one that you really want to piss people off, when you tell them that Muslims believe in the same God as the Christians do.
Absolutely.
Yeah, but they will flat out say that's not true. I'm like, yeah, it is. It is true. It's in the Bible. It's the same God, you dumb fucks.
The only difference between them and us is we believe that God wants something different than they do.
But it's the same. It's the same freaking God.
No matter how you measure it.
Yep, doesn't matter. It is historically accurate. That is the same God.
Whether you want to call him Zeus, whether you want to call him Allah or Yahweh or just plain God, it's all the same guy.
Well, I'm not even talking about. I'm talking about actual factual. Fact is that the God that they pray is the same one that we pray to. It is the same one.
Right.
But you tell that to Christians who don't know any better, which is the majority of it, and even those who do, they tell you you're wrong. I'm like, no, I'm not wrong. It is the same one.
I don't believe anybody's got it 100% right. That's why different religions exist.
No, but it's not my opinion. It is the same one.
Yeah.
But people think that I'm like blowing smoke up their ass and giving them my opinion. I'm like, no, it's not an opinion. You check your facts.
And as far as Muslims are concerned, the Muslim texts, the Quran, mentions the devil a lot.
Yeah, I mean ours doesn't until later.
Yeah. Well, they acknowledge his existence. I don't know a whole lot more than that, but I know about 15 years ago they found literally a satanic temple out in the desert somewhere in Afghanistan, and it was destroyed. There's a documentary about it on Science Channel. Well,
anyway, back to the whole vampire thing. I also had to watch my favorite vampire movie. What do you think is my favorite vampire movie?
I'm going to guess, what, Blade?
Yeah, that is my favorite. That is my favorite. You know why it's my favorite?
Because there's Daywalker.
Because of Wesley Snipes is awesome. He's awesome.
Tax evader.
Talk about Wesley Snipes, the actor. I don't know him personally, but he's awesome. And I'm not sure if... It's not the first comic movie, first comic mainstream movie. I think that's actually Spawn, really, if you look from modern times.
Superman.
No. First Marvel movie.
Superman's DC.
Yeah, I know. I'm saying first Marvel movie. And Superman is not...
Blade is Marvel?
Yeah, Blade's Marvel.
Wow. Interesting.
Yeah, I think Spawn would be the first one, but I'm not sure if Spawn was bought by Marvel or if Spawn originated as Marvel. Anyway, I like it for multiple reasons, but I'm not sure, and I don't know if there's any way to check it. I kind of did this preliminary search on it online to see if the first 3-point landing was done by Wesley Snipes. Because they always do that. In
Superhero landing.
Yeah, and Deadpool's like, oh, she's going to do it. And Deadpool.
Yeah.
But Wesley Snipes, I think, does the first one. I don't know. I'd have to look and see if Spawn does one. I don't remember if he does or not. Anyway, I love that movie just because, vampires are evil, and he just kills them all. And it's awesome. And he can do everything they can do, and he's better. So, it's a sweet movie. I personally believe, here's what I don't understand, right? If you want blood so bad, why don't you just use the blood banks? Why doesn't Wesley Snipes go to a blood bank instead of having a serum? Just go to a blood bank. What the hell's wrong with you? As a matter of fact, if he's so hung up on it and he's so worried about it, because we just continuously produce blood anyway, why doesn't he just have Whistler hook him up, store some of his own blood? He's going to remake it, and if he needs it, he can go drink it.
With the right diet, he could turn himself into quite the blood-creating powerhouse.
Yeah. Well, I mean, what's the problem? Why can't he do it? Shoot, give the guy some erythropoietin. He can make a shitload of it. If if Lance Armstrong
can blood dope.
If he can blood dope, if he can save his own fucking blood, why can't Wesley Snipes? Why can't Blade do that? Shit, and he's going to get even bigger power punch out of it. Just freaking ridiculous. I never understand that. Why aren't they just blood banking it? Come on, seriously. Get your own fucking blood. Stop borrowing everybody else's. Stop worrying about some serum. You don't need any serum. Drink your own fucking blood. Just recycle it.
I think it's a moral thing.
Or shit, every time somebody, literally, you make friends with a bunch of women who are still in their productive years, and you just ask them kindly, can I please just have your stuff when you're done with it? And you just use that like it's a tea bag.
Oh, that's gross to even think.
Well, you know what? It's better than him suffering and having to have some stupid serum that doesn't fucking work. That's all I'm saying.
I think the idea is that it needs.
Yeah, it has to show a struggle that he's
used to be. It needs to be fresh. Is the way they were trying to make it look. Has to be fresh out of the tap. It can't be something stored.
Oh, well, that's garbage. But that's the whole thing of Interview with the Vampire. Interview with the Vampire, they can't drink, they can't have old blood from a dead whatever, blah, blah, blah.
Right.
Because otherwise, I guess
death takes you.
Or whatever makes them sick. But yet they're immortal and they can't die.
Right.
So, I would argue that you could argue that
they could
Interview with the
stepped
Vampire
out in the sun.
Interview with the Vampire is kind of where it all starts to go wrong. You could kind of say that, but there's so much campy bullshit out there that I would not say that at all. I actually like Interview with the Vampire. I
think they do a pretty good job with Interview with the Vampire, but again, the problem, and like you asked me in that text about what's changed in the past 20 years, mainly it's the removal of God from the vampire condition.
Well, because nobody gives a shit. Nobody cares about that.
They should.
No, they shouldn't, because
that's where the whole vampire concept originates.
But nobody cares about that.
Is curse from the gods or curse from God.
Yeah, nobody cares about that.
They should.
I look at it more like I like in the first Blade where the girl, I don't remember her name, but she says to the bad guy, Deacon Frost, she said that it's nothing but a sexually transmitted infection. It's a virus, which is hilarious. Because that's true. That's what it is. So she cured herself, because
do it again.
She'll do it again because, she's, I keep saying, because she's able to cure that condition. So you can't really call it a virus because you can't cure a virus, but say it's a bacterial infection, a sexually transmitted infection. That's the funny part of it. True enough. I think it's a good concept. I like Blade also because it has vampires that are pure blood vampires. And then it has those ones that are turned. I like that concept. Because again, it shows that you have a species that is continuing. And I think that's important.
Well, Blade definitely has that. The one guy who they pulled his fangs out and laid him out in front of the sun, and his comment at one point in the movie was that he had no scars, and Deacon Frost did, because he was born a vampire, and Frost was just merely turned.
Right.
And he was using that as kind of a hierarchy. I'm better than you because I'm pure blood vampire and you're not.
Right. So again, that's why you would say, in order to promote the species, it would be far better to have these purebloods, as long as they're not banging their sisters and introducing all kinds of genetic abnormalities. It seems like that would be a better way, and then you would have, of course, the familiars or whatever that you'd promise to turn because they have good service or blah blah blah. So you would have two species, but then you would have to run into that problem with like the caste system. So
Ever seen Fright Night?
Yeah, Fright Night. Yeah, Fright Night was a good one. That was an amusing one. Some of the ones I wanted to get around to watching that I didn't get to watch. One of them was Fright Night, and that, for some reason, when the first saw it, was scary.
The original Fright Night.
Yeah, the original Fright Night. But then now when you watch it, it would be just freaking hilarious. I did watch it like probably 15 years ago again, and it was hilarious.
So cool, Brewster.
It was so hilarious. Just what. The Lost Boys, awesome vampire flick.
Yeah, I love that movie.
That's an awesome vampire movie because it has the twist, it has the turn.
They use the concept of has to be a willing thing. You have to drink the blood willingly,
right? And it had some cool, like the cool vampire rules where you have to invite the vampire in. I said again. I did like that where the guy, he's like, well, you're the man of the house. You have to invite me in, and he foolishly, and damn it, invites him in. And he had the guardian dog. That was cool.
Mm-hmm. The hellhound.
Yeah, I like The Lost Boys. That's one of my favorites. For some reason, Kiefer Sutherland scared the shit out of me as the bad guy in that movie. I think it's because he was in that movie, and he was also in Stand By Me, where he was, a bad guy, bully.
I've seen that movie, but I don't remember much about it.
It was a good movie. So my second favorite vampire movie, though, is Underworld. I don't remember what happens in that movie. All I remember is Kate Beckinsale's in it, and she's freaking hot, and she's wearing black, and it's tight, and it's awesome. That's all I care about. Don't remember much else about the movie, but any movie that's got Kate Beckinsale in it, where she's dressed like that, I'm a fan.
Well, they also go into some other things like... werewolves and...
Don't care. Kate Beckinsale. She's wearing... It's got to be like latex or something. Don't know. Don't care. Looks awesome.
Just a quick little sidebar. Zombies. Now, there's a creation by George Romero back in the 60s with... was it Night of the Living Dead? It's not the first written thing about zombies, but it's what made the concept popular.
Well, if you really want to... And then after that, it was... what's the other good one? Serpent in the Rainbow.
Yes. Yeah,
that's a good one.
Spooky as hell.
Yeah, that's a good one. I haven't seen that in forever, but I did watch it beyond when it first came out. I watched it again, I don't know, probably like 15 years, 20 years ago. It was really good.
Yeah.
Still a good movie. I like the setting. That's kind of the other thing that I like about with Interview with a Vampire. They set it in New Orleans, which is to me, is the best place, one of the best places in the United States if you're going to have a vampire setting.
Very superstitious community.
It's very old. The graves are above ground because it's a swamp.
Right.
It's just an old historic city. I guess another place that would be good would be like Salem, maybe somewhere like that. Just any of the old cities, or I guess even anywhere in New England, maybe the older cities would be cool. I like New Orleans as a setting for spooky time. It always works out good. New York, I guess, whatever. I guess just because they pick it for violence. You could pick Chicago for violence, Detroit for violence. But is it spooky? Nah. I like to be able to feel like you're in an old world for that sort of thing. I did try to look at other movies also where the vampires are getting their asses whooped. I did watch Van Helsing. Mm-hmm. Van Helsing gets a bad rap because it's kind of campy. Because it's campy, but I like the spin on Van Helsing. I think they should have made another one.
Bit the vampire instead of the vampire biting her. I thought that was funny.
Yeah, I think that I think the failing with that movie was that they didn't develop it enough for there to be a second lead into it.
My bad. I was referring to the TV series, not the movie.
I've never seen the TV series. I'm talking about the movie. Because the movie's good, sort of, because he's going after everybody. In the beginning, he's going after Mr. Hyde.
Yeah.
Which is, that's pretty cool. Just like in League of Extraordinary Gentlemen.
They involve
kind of the same chase down.
Mm-hmm.
That's a good one too. If you want to talk about Mina Harker, she's the vampire in the League of Extraordinary Gentlemen. It's not Jonathan Harker she's the vampire.
I never put that together.
That's not what you didn't figure that out.
I knew she was a vampire, but I didn't realize.
Her name's Mina.
Mina, yeah, you're right.
I am right, yeah. But I like Van Helsing because it had Kate Beckinsale in it.
She played the gypsy princess.
Yeah, she's wearing she's wearing the, what do you call it, a corset? Or what is it called? She's wearing that. She got the tight black pants. She looks super amazing. And they had this this flesh-colored top on her, but it had red on it in spots that kind of made the illusion of that you were looking at her nipples. I'm sure they did that intentionally because the red spots were kind of in the same spot on both sides. And I'm sure they were like roses or whatever. Mm-hmm. But, yeah, that's what did the movie for me. That's what made the movie for me. And the female vampires they were pretty hot, too. But again, they reproduced but couldn't give their little vampire babies life. It was so sad.
Not sustainable.
So sad. They just couldn't give them life. They could reproduce.
Okay, now
shoot them out in their little pods.
Here's a problem.
Chrysalis, if you will.
With your vampire as a species. There was a movie, and I'm struggling to remember what it's called, but it had Willem Dafoe in it. And it was basically a world that was overrun with vampires. And as vampires become hungrier, they became more feral, and they would attack indiscriminately. And eventually, the world was overrun with vampires, and there wasn't enough food. So the few humans that were left were basically treated like a commodity, cattle, if you will. And the vampires that were controlling the humans were fighting against the feral vampires who were just uncontrollable. But the feral ones became stronger as they became more desperate to feed. And
which is realistic, obviously.
Yeah.
Up to a point.
So basically, the propagation of the vampire species would eventually cause its own extinction.
Unless, one thing you have to remember, though, is that theoretically would be correct if you base that genre on they could only feed on humans.
No, they can feed on each other too.
Well, I mean, but the whole planet is not only populated by humans as an animal. That's what I'm saying. If you've got large species, you've got large animals, you've got cows, you've got horses, you've got whatever, they could be feeding on them too.
Right.
But if the genre is only based on they need human blood to survive, then it would that would work. But again, if you look in nature where you've got the vampire bat doesn't need human blood. The vampire bat just needs blood. So what do they feed on? Donkeys, goats, whatever, larger mammals.
Don't vampire bats or most rodents have issues with spreading rabies?
Yeah.
Okay. People who have rabies
die. They die.
It becomes an infection of the brain, right?
Yeah.
So they go nuts.
Mm-hmm.
And don't they tend to try and bite people?
And they fear water.
They fear water.
But they don't live.
Well, yeah, they die. I know.
I mean, they die right away. I mean, it's not like you're hanging out for a couple of weeks.
What are the odds? What are the odds that Vlad Tepes contracted rabies at some point?
Well, he'd have been dead right away.
Well, he eventually did die.
Yeah, but they actually don't know how he died.
Well, that's what I'm saying. Maybe he was.
And they don't know that he was actually buried where he was buried.
so they can't test and find out.
Yeah, but he, most likely probably didn't die from rabies. It's not like he was. It's not like it made him a better fighter, and all of a sudden, he was hanging out for like 10 years before he kicked the bucket. You get rabies, you're gonna die.
People who are rabid, don't they become sensitive to the sunlight as well? Doesn't it hurt their eyes?
We are talking about a condition that you don't see in the United States very often.
I'm just saying.
They're afraid of water. They become crazy. They foam at the mouth. Their brain swells. They die.
They
would be sensitive to
think of it like an investigation into the origin of the concept of vampires.
Well, again, with the origin of the concept of vampires,
come from?
They're talking. But again, they try to break it down by someone who's got a coagulation disorder, or they talk about the people with porphyria, which isn't technically. They talk about that a lot. Porphyria supposedly would make them have. They excrete, I don't know, if it's phosphorus or whatever, but their teeth could actually glow like an orange in dim light. They'd have more prominent teeth. They would be kind of sensitive to the sun. Some of them might, I think they speculated before that they would drink blood to actually make them feel better because they were in so much pain. But it would be a myth for them to drink the blood to actually make them feel better. So you have all these different historical aspects of it that cause people to make up these stories or make up these fantasies. It's just like anything else. If you can't explain something 600 years ago, science, magic and mythology is just science that hasn't been explained yet. It's one of the theories,
at the time.
It just hasn't been explained yet. So as time goes by, we speculate, oh, well, this is this is this, this is that. So it's a nice little theory.
There are things throughout history that make people believe, that caused people to believe that vampires had these vulnerabilities based on things they didn't understand.
Right.
So while vampires are a myth, they're not a real species or anything like that. The concept was fed, listen to me, it was fed through superstitions and fears.
Right, just like what would say, even now, we still have people that believe in Bigfoot, right?
Hey,
you still believe in Bigfoot. Bigfoot's possible. The theory, of course, is that we've investigated every spot on the planet, and if Bigfoot was around, we would have seen it by now. Well, is that true? Not really, because we find new species every day. They're just not gigantic like Bigfoot. But we also have species every day that die out, unfortunately. They might be microscopic, but the point is, new species, they live, they die, etc., etc., etc.
Microscopic Bigfoot.
So, again, something that you saw that you couldn't explain becomes a myth. Or UFOs. Well, by name, it's unidentified.
Right.
Who knows what... I mean, if you want to get to conspiracies, technology-wise, we've made some major jumps since the 90s up until now. How do we make those major jumps? There's a little saying that we used to say that what does AT&T stand for? It's alien torture and technology. Where did we get all this stuff that we got all of a sudden? We did make some serious leaps. I mean, in the 90s, in 1991 when I joined the Army, I didn't have a computer. I wasn't on the internet. I didn't start using the internet till I came back stateside. And that probably really wasn't until 94, 95, because originally, if you remember, AOL charged up the ass for the internet. I knew people who had $300, $400, $500 bills every month from AOL.
I got my first computer in my sophomore year.
Oh, I had a computer, but it was a graphic computer, and you could just play games on it, and you could do super simple word processing.
Yeah.
But it wasn't those leaps and bounds we made from, I would say, 90 to 95?
It was an IBM DOS-based computer. Before, I take that back. I had an Amiga.
I had one of those.
Yeah. And I think that's the one that you're referring to. But my first actual computer I bought after that was an IBM DOS-based computer, and you could do some pretty interesting things with it even back then.
Yeah.
But
I'm looking at the short period of leaps and bounds we made where, wow, that's crazy that we could all of a sudden, in such a short period of time, technology-wise, be off the charts.
Said, the first moon lander had the equivalent memory and technology that fits into your wristwatch, you know. And I'm not talking about an iWatch, Apple iWatch. I'm talking about just your typical digital watch. All it did was tell time.
That's pretty amazing. So I say, again, things that we don't understand, you make up a story about it until science figures the story out. But there's plenty of things that science hasn't figured out. You could speculate all day long about where the myth of vampires came from, but you can trace it back a really long time. So what was going on back then? Most likely, I would say, if you really want to get down to it, what was going on back then? Same thing that goes back on now. There was cults. There were evil people. There were people making sacrifices. Sacrificing was a normal thing in ancient Greece.
Once upon a time, yeah.
Yeah, so it wouldn't be uncommon for people to sacrifice things and drink the blood of them and to make up their own stories to demonstrate their own power to everybody else.
Myths have truth.
Sure.
Not necessarily fact, but truth.
No, they have some truth to them.
Right.
And I would say that's probably where the majority of that stuff coming from. But I still think that it's a big... America, I don't know about the rest of the world, but America still has a huge love affair with vampires. I enjoy a good vampire movie. Mm-hmm. Blade's still my favorite. Heck, I enjoyed the Twilight series.
And you know...
But I enjoy the Twilight series for what reason?
Honestly, I was... What, you like the actress?
No, she's too mopey. She's too mopey for me. No, why do you think I like Twilight?
Because you like sparkly vampires?
Team Jacob, motherfucker! Team Jacob, all the way. That boy's not white. He's a fucking werewolf. And he's okay with me. He's not some mopey, depressed little vampire that sparkles in the sun. Because let's face it, Edward, motherfucker, if you're listening, which I'm sure you're not, you're nothing but a bike reflector. You're
what?
You're a bike reflector.
I don't know what that is.
A reflector that you put on your bike?
Oh, bike reflector.
You know, sparkles in the sun.
Sounded like you said something else. Okay. Yeah,
Team
bike
Jacob.
reflector.
Team Jacob. That's all I gotta say. Team Jacob. All right, well, we've been rambling on.
I was hoping we could go the entire podcast without mentioning that concept of vampire.
Well, I think about it, though, from my perspective, when I look at some of these things that maybe we consider a little silly, how did that start off, though? It didn't start off with the movies.
Well,
it started off with a book, but what did this
sparkling concept come in?
Oh, I don't know.
Where do they get that?
Well, it's just another twist. It's a nice little twist. I mean, it's obnoxious for some of us, but what did... I can't remember the name of the lady. Was it a lady who wrote Twilight?
I think so.
But what did she do that is fantastic? I say the same thing about people who bitch about Harry Potter. I'm like, okay, but what did she do? She wrote a series of books, and they're big books, that got people interested in reading. She did a phenomenal job because that... Okay, did I read it? I don't think I read any of them.
I actually liked Harry Potter.
Well, that's what I'm saying, but this is what these people did. They inspired... She inspired an entire generation of people to pick up a fucking book. That's fantastic. When most of the time they're sitting on their freaking thumbs or playing some video games or whatever, they got interested and read a book. Harry Potter inspired... That lady inspired an entire generation of kids, like my son's age, to read those books. From the time they were little, Skylar, we started off reading the book to him. And then he grew up with those books and he was reading them himself. Big books. She inspired people to read. So the person who wrote the Twilight series, God love her, she inspired people to read. The person who wrote the vampire, what do you call it? The Vampire Diaries, is that what Interview with a Vampire is? Is that what they're called?
I've seen
inspired
Vampire Diaries.
Inspired an entire group of people to read. So anytime people kind of get iffy about it and they're like, okay, well maybe that's not your cup of tea, but look at the broader spectrum, look at the bigger picture. The bigger picture is people picked up a book. And to me that's important, because that stimulates the brain, that stimulates the thought process. And maybe it seems stupid to you, and it's not something you would read, but if you can inspire an entire group of people to just start reading, that's great. Cirque du Freak books.
And again, with
Great books.
Vampire Diaries, they removed the whole God concept out of it.
But if you think about that from an author standpoint, why do you think that maybe? And I'm not saying that's what they thought.
Appeal to a wider audience.
Exactly, and that's what you want to do. It's not about worrying about offending people. It's about, you do want to sell. You want to sell that book. I mean, that's important. So maybe one, broaching a subject, because those books, even though that's not in the subject, there's still those fanatics out there who are going to say, "Oh God, if you read that book, you worship the devil." And then to that I say, I understand your opinion, but fuck you. But fuck you.
Exactly.
All right, so
Don't be a judgmental
don't
prick.
don't be a judgmental prick. So that wraps up our episode. Our next one is going to be fun too. I'm not going to tell you what it's about. I'll tell Doc what it's about. It'll be fun. But get out there and read. Out there, watch a movie. Watch Kate Beckinsale in Underworld. God, she's awesome.
Giggity.
Shit, watch her in Van Helsing. I don't give a shit. All I got to say is, Kate Beckinsale, if you're listening, I love you. If we could just freeze you in time at the first Underworld, or even in Van Helsing, that would be phenomenal.
She's in other movies too.
Yeah. I know. I just love her in Underworld and Van Helsing.
Okay.
And I love Hugh Jackman also. Hugh Jackman, swing, also a cool guy. Love him in Van Helsing. I just love him in anything because he's awesome. Not his best acting portrayal, I would say, but hey, at least we did see his abs in there, and that's always good. I did want to talk about, but we never got around to it, about how they just make some people get so homophobic about vampires, especially with Interview with a Vampire. But I think that what they didn't realize is, I think the person who wrote that, I can't remember her fucking name, she was trying to show that
Anne Rice.
Anne Rice, yeah. I don't think she was trying to make people look like they were homosexual. She was showing that basically vampires they don't have a sex.
Blood is blood.
Yeah, and they're more like, it's about getting blood, and it's about having a relationship where they all wanted to have a relationship with Brad Pitt's character, with Louis.
Well, taking
about
somebody's
love.
blood is somewhat of an intimate act, especially if you're not going to kill them.
Yeah, and they're trying to make it look like it was homosexuality. She wasn't.
I didn't see any of that as homosexual.
But a lot of people did. A lot of people thought that had homosexuality tied in with it, but really it doesn't, because if you're looking at the vampire itself, the vampire is not something that... It's not like they said this is a male vampire, this is a female vampire. They're saying that they don't really have... sex doesn't play into it.
If anything, they had an awkward relationship between Louis and Claudia. Because of her small stature, she was old enough to know, to be considered adult, but she did not have an adult
True enough.
body. And technically, Louis and Claudia had what you could describe as a love affair, but it wasn't a physical love affair.
Right. True. But again, it's just all about perception, and there's always going to be people who can get butthurt about everything. And to those people, once again, I say, fuck you. Don't be a tard. Don't be an asshat. Don't be a turd merchant. A little known fact, Vlad the Impaler actually made his money as a turd merchant. He was not.
Fertilizer?
He was not originally a peasant. Not originally a prince. Actually, he was a self-made man. He started off the son of a poor goat herder, and he actually made money by, collecting all the goat poo and selling it, and therefore was a turd merchant.
He survived more assassination attempts than anyone know. At least documented, anyway.
He was kind of like, of his day, he was kind of like Chuck Norris.
He was stabbed, he was poisoned, he was beaten, he was pushed out of a third-story window, and he just would not die.
Well, it's, like I said, he was like the Chuck Norris of his times. Well, Chuck Norris has been dead for several years.
No, really?
Yeah, he's been dead for several years.
I didn't know that.
It's true. It's just death is too scared to tell him.
Oh, I see.
And I was lying. Vlad the Impaler was not a turd merchant. I just wanted to say turd merchant.
Yeah.
Yeah. So anyway, this wraps up our episode of Beaveman and the Doc. I am the Beaveman.
And I'm the Doc.
That's the Doc. And as always, stay tuned until next time. Have your friends listen. Keep your feet and knees together. Look towards the horizon. And adios, mooch fuckos.